This is a crazy thing. So I made a clip the other day where I talked about this sort of financial pyramid where at the bottom is crypto and meme stocks. And there's people that just say really simple phrases like time in the market beats time in the market, dollar cost averages. And I just talked about how they often fall into traps. This guy wanted to add more nuance to what I was saying. He's a financial planner. Is his title incendiary? No! It's just thoughts on dollar cost averaging. He said, I've been thinking about the take. He tries to explain my position. He adds some nuance, adds some bonus to it. Of course, it's such a good post that it got no upvotes. What he should have said was, I think Atrioc is fucking stupid. Put that in top of it, get fucking 600 votes, have no nuance, no source, no background. That would have done great. But him actually writing down sincere thoughts, incredible. I wanted to explain my thoughts a little bit more because I think this guy and me agree on essentially everything. So either my clip didn't fully explain my thoughts or maybe this guy misinterpreted me, but I want to explain basically what I'm saying. For a long time, when people were planning for their retirement, people used to be pretty safe with how they allocated that money. So you might do like 60% of your money in a big diversified basket of stocks from around the world. So it would be stocks from all different markets, emerging markets, European markets, American markets, Asian markets. So like basically what you're betting on is that the economy of the world will go up over time. And they would put 40%, called a 60-40 portfolio, into bonds. This is like, you know, government debt, IOUs from the government. Bonds are extremely safe. They get a guaranteed flat return. Right now it's about, I don't know, it's 4.5% or something for a 10-year bond. Bonds, stocks and bonds. Over time, people realized that in the world ETF, the outperformer was the American stocks. Cross this out. And they went 60% S&P 500, 40% bonds, okay? This is a pretty common retirement portfolio for a while. And so it's like now you're getting even higher returns because this is doing pretty well, but you're a little bit more focused on American stocks specifically. Now you're really focused on American stocks. So if American stocks underperform any moment, well then, you know, there's some risk. But it's been doing so well, why would you pick this boring one? We could have this one, okay? And then millennials like me, people my age or like late 20s, have really abandoned this altogether, and they are now doing 100% S&P 500. And also in that time, the S&P 500 went from like a pretty diverse mix of 500 companies to being heavily market cap weighted to 7 stocks, 7 tech stocks. So basically, their retirement went from a pretty diversified mix across the world to entirely focused on 7 tech stocks. But they keep using the same cliche phrases that like a money manager from the fucking 60s might say about time in the market beats timing the market, but you've drastically increased your risk because you're chasing higher return. And if you read like R stocks or R investing, they'll ask this question like, why do I pick S&P 500 over the world? Well, it's like, well, it makes more. And one of the fundamental rules of finance is that if you're getting a higher return, there's higher risk. If S&P 500 is returning 10, 20%, it's because there's higher risk. And if you ever bring this up to people, if you ever try to point out the hypocrisy of what they're saying, they get real emotional about it. They get angry. They think these truisms they've locked onto are like true in all situations at all times. And they hate to hear it. My second part of my point, all this aside, is that many people, I also need to explain, if you guys don't know what dollar cost averaging is, it basically means if I have $1,000, instead of putting $1,000 into the market right now, I might do 200 a month. And I never stop. 200, 200, 200, 200. And that way, if the stock's up, I'm buying. If the stock's down, I'm buying. I just keep buying. Dollar cost averaging is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I have no problem with it. My problem is the idea that just dollar cost averaging reduces your risk. You're safe. You'll always go up. The diversification of your portfolio still matters. Okay, but the reasonable performance will average out and they'll likely get average over time. That's another great question, okay? Every time people say that the S&P 500 is guaranteed to give you 8-10% a year, they reference the last 100 years where like, okay, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, whatever, but it's up. But what's worth understanding on a deeper level is first of all, how the index has changed over time to be heavily weighted towards a few tech stocks. So the risk is getting higher and higher and higher. That's first thing. The second thing is that all of this 100 years of outperformance is at the same time that America has been the undisputed #1 financial superpower. America has been on top and dictating the global order and all financial flows for the entirety of this 100 years. If you were to do this same experiment for the 1800s, for like the London financial markets, it would be the same thing. But what happened to London? Around the end of the 1800s and the start of the 1900s, the UK lost its premier spot as the #1 undisputed center of financial flows. And all of that moved to New York. And London equities underperformed significantly. It's not like it's just a guaranteed fact of life that American stocks will always go up at a high percent every year for the future forever. And as we enter into a more multipolar era, you can't just point to that and say, well, that worked then, it'll always work forever. You have to be a little more thoughtful about the reality of the risk you're taking. Now, I'm not your financial manager. You can do whatever the fuck you want. Most people will tell you just fucking dollar cost average and S&P 500 and fucking shut your hair off. Fine. I don't care. If you do that, you should be happy with it. Don't let me judge you. But I just want to point out that things in the entire world are changing. And especially right now, you're putting so much of your bet on the Magnificent Seven. If someone told me they're investing dollar cost average into the world index, and that's the majority of their retirement savings, I would say just fucking buy and hold. If you're telling me the world economy will grow over time, I agree with you. But if you keep using the same phrases, but get more and more concentrated on your risk, I'm gonna point out the flaw in that logic. And I do think having some portion of your thing allocated to bonds is a good idea. And this guy mentions that as well. This financial planner, he talks about glide paths where over time, you slowly get less and less stocks and more bonds as you get older to reduce your risk. That's fucking great. But right now in America, we have boomers with their entire net worth piled into fucking the S&P 500, which is piled entirely into Nvidia. Do you understand? Like, these boomers could have a huge chunk of their retirement down 20, 30% right before they retire. It's crazy. And I'm not gonna feel bad for pointing it out. I know it contradicts the basic 3 phrases you know, but there's something that needs to be said. That's my thought process. I don't really care how you invest. And I think this guy has great advice. And I do 100% believe that you should not be out there picking stocks or trying to time the market. But you should also recognize you should be invested. But you should be invested in something that is, if you're gonna be diversified, you should be actually diversified to a bigger than just the American market tech stocks. Okay, last thing I wanna say. No one seemed to bring this up because I got some comments about the dollar cost average thing. They all focused on dollar cost averaging, which is the part I have no problem with. The idea of dollar cost averaging is that every single month, you have to put in the same amount. Whether the stock market's up or whether it's down, you have to put in that $200 every month. You have to just consistently do it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. If you don't do it every month, you're actually timing the market. In real life, people that say they love dollar cost average love to do it when things are going up. They pay it every month when the stock market's up and times are good and they have their job. And then when the stock market crashes and they lose their job or whatever, then they stop putting the money in the market. That's when it's most important of all. Then you're buying things cheap. You're buying it expensive here. People can say all they want. Oh, I never time the market. I'm at a dollar cost average. But in the reality is it's very hard to do. It's much harder than everyone pretends it is. You have to really understand that you're actually committing to it. And don't just say it the way that most people on Reddit do and then panic instantly. Don't think most people have the emotional stomach or the job security to be doing this as consistently as they like. So they should take even less risk. They should have less risk in their portfolio because you're probably not going to dollar cost average the way you think you will when a downturn. That's my point. That's my point. I'm sorry to crash out a bit, but it's very important to me. Like, this is like, I'm trying to sum up the thoughts I have about all this. Nobody seems to bring up. Everyone just seems to be blindly ignoring the risk. And anytime you try to like bring this up or like point out the obvious logical inconsistencies, they just fall back on these same phrases and get real defensive, real emotional. I don't care what you do. I want this to be pointed out. Long story short, this guy's post was excellent. It's worth reading. I agree with this, the way he laid this out, the way the pyramid's laid out. I really want to appreciate Faya Biker for writing it this way. This is like the way it should be approached because I think people learn something from it, but it's not like this fucking nitpicky Redditor trying to prove how smart they are. It's just a human being sharing their experience. And I think when you do it that way, you're going to find we don't actually disagree on very much. So thumbs up. Anyway, that's my fucking point.